call the meeting to order. Okay, thanks everyone for signing on this evening. We're going to call the meeting to order. It is now 7:04. Okay. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. Dave, you got your flags ready? There we go. Okay. Here we go. Please stand or pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty,
justice for all.
for
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? There being none, we'll seek approval on the minutes. I have one note of a change. The meeting was noted as opening at 7:01 a.m. and I think it should be p.m. Any other changes to the minutes? All right, choir, give me a sign.
And make a motion to approve.
All right. So is there a second? Dave Barget is seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Aye. All right, thank you. The minutes are accepted with the noted change. So for our new business, Pinar, would you like to give us an update on the CDBG funding? All right.
So, Urban County has a 10,000 funding availability for a variety of community services. So the applications are due December 16, and we will be taking the applications online. And again, we need a community assistant board to help us allocate this funding, preferably in January or February meeting. So this funding can be used for a variety of community services, but not rent and utility assistance. So we will be currently in December. We will be the allocation will be done for rent utility assistance in the amount of 25,000. So this is in addition to that. It is another funding source, $10,000. So all the questions regarding to the eligible activities and all this information, everyone can reach to Kathleen Thompson, our CDBG Urban County Administrator. But we will be taking the applications online. So if you encounter any problems with the applications and things like that, please let me know. And again, this probably next year, this won't be like this. This is a new part from the CDBG. It is more general. But next year, probably we will be taking it together with the rent utility assistance so that it can be voted during the December allocation. But this was kind of late this year. It is the first time. So I hope this doesn't confuse everyone. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
All right. Anyone have anything to add to that? Is that it? I have one question. So the funds, this additional 10,000 will be for anything other than rental assistance.
It covers many topics like senior services, disabilities, domestic violence, housing counseling. I mean, it has a variety of eligible activities. So, but we are not including rent utility assistance because we already have a program for that. But if any agency has any question about the program, they can contact Kathleen Thompson so that they can see if their program is fitting to these, because CDBG has their own set of rules. So it has, I mean, so we are keeping it very general. And as a policy, it is, I mean, it is preferred that if one agency, so not the same agency to take the both funding resources. Actually, the background of this funding sources, City of St. Charles was awarding, I mean, earlier was awarding from their CDBG allotment, but currently they are part of Urban County, and most of the programs are combined in the new 5-year plan. So from now on, we will be taking it together.
Okay.
So this is the reason.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So the next order of business will be November presentations. And I think the first up we have is Crisis Nursery, Lindsay Kayanka.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Am I good to get started then? Get us moving for the night?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's always so good to see everybody's faces at these. I know we're all still sad that we can't be in person presenting this year, but it's good to be able to see everybody still. So this year I wanted to really focus in on, talking about what the Crisis Nursery is and what we do for those of you that don't know, and just as a good reminder for those of you who have heard from us before, and then talk a little bit about some of the trends and challenges that we've been seeing in the last year. I think it probably echoes a lot of what we've heard from our partners last week as well. But essentially, so the St. Louis Crisis Nursery, we are primarily a child abuse and neglect prevention agency. So we're really focused on providing support for vulnerable families before they get to the point where their children are being harmed or it's so bad that the kids have to be taken away and removed. So we've been in the St. Louis area for 35 years now, and then in the St. Charles area for 29 years. And we have 3 locations where our nurseries are housed here in St. Charles County, and each of those locations are 24/7, 365 days a year. Our Wentzville location, which is the largest, houses 10 children a night. Our St. Charles location houses 8 kids a night, and then our smaller St. Charles City location houses 4 children a night. And during the pandemic, you may remember from last year that we were really focused on consolidating our staffing resources to ensure we could remain open the whole time so that we were there nonstop for families. And so we did go ahead and temporarily close our St. Charles nursery locations, the 2 smaller ones in St. Charles City, in order to be able to really consolidate those resources in Wentzville. Since that is our largest location, and we were able to provide assistance with gas cards and cabs for families as needed to get them there. But we are very proud to report that we have remained open throughout the pandemic. We haven't had to shut our doors, so we've been there every day and night with kids there in the building with us. And so since the start of the pandemic, we've had over 1,200 admissions of St. Charles County children, and we've provided more than 52,000 hours of care. And some of you that have been at some of the other community meetings may have heard that we did reopen our St. Charles building, our bigger St. Charles City building. just this August. So we have started doing some admissions there. We're not fully up and moving there, but we are doing some admissions. And so we've been excited about that. And overall in St. Charles County, our admissions are up by 26% over last year. So we're moving in the right direction. We're still about a quarter down from where we were before COVID hit, but we are anticipating returning to more of regular, hours and functioning like I know a lot of the rest of you are in 2022, pending some additional hiring and things of that nature. So we're also very proud that throughout the pandemic, we've maintained that same high quality level of services that our families have come to expect from us. So we put a lot of safety procedures into place early on so that we could continue to provide that nurturing care for our little ones. And in addition to that round the clock nurturing care, we've also continued to offer that art and play therapy on site for our kids. And we've done 589 sessions during the pandemic. We've also continued to do those developmental assessments. We continue to see that around 2/3 of our kids are in that 5 and under age range that we know is at high risk for developmental concerns going unaddressed. And we do know that a lot of our kids, because of difficulties with access, lack of health insurance and things of that nature, they're not getting those early screenings. And so we have close partnerships with FACT and some of the other providers in the area to make sure when we're identifying those concerns, we're getting families connected quickly. We've also continued to provide those medical exams on site. We've done 416 medical exams on sites with our little kids during the pandemic, and 2/3 of those have revealed some sort of a concern, whether that's diaper rash or a cut that's not healing up exactly like it needs to, or a little one that's really sick and needs medication. It's about 1/3 of our kids that end up needing medication, and we're able to take care of all of that on site. And that's through our wonderful partnerships with Institute for Family Medicine and the urgent care for kids out here in St. Charles County. So they come on site and they do that. They've also been so critical during COVID. They will come out and do COVID swabs if we have some concerns. They've also provided around the clock consultation around medical concerns. So they've been a big piece of that as well. So we're really proud that we've continued to provide that high level of services. And then of course, that support that we're offering for our parents. So despite the pandemic and all of the challenges, we remain at that 97% number. 97% of our parents meet the goals they set at intake by the time their child is discharged from care. And that is through, again, those partnerships with our other partners in the community, with referrals, with really the focus on that process. And then we're getting our families plugged into our aftercare program. So our family empowerment program, where our master's level social workers and counselors provide that individualized support for families. And that is a completely voluntary program. Prior to the pandemic, it was almost entirely home-based. We have started to return to families' homes when it is deemed safe to do so. Our team is fully vaccinated at this point, but we are, always looking at safety and evaluating that. So we are doing some home and field visits outside, but primarily we're doing phone contact still. And we've had more than 1,700 sessions with St. Charles County families since the start of the pandemic. And right now, we're hovering right about 60% of our parents that use our crisis care services for their kids do go ahead and have at least one or more sessions with our FEP counselors. And we're really proud of that as well, because we know that that's where that continuity is happening. So to kind of illustrate that, I think about one of our families that we saw earlier this summer. They were referred by coordinated entry. They'd been staying at a hotel. They had 2 really young kids, and they were going to be without a place to stay because both parents were struggling to keep up with shifts at work and things, and they didn't have enough money for a hotel stay for the next week. So they had reached out to the nursery. We were able to get the kids in for care, again, do those medical exams, figured out the littlest one had some really bad diaper rash and needed some medicated cream for that. We were able to provide for some of the basic needs that the kids had. And then we were able to get the parents connected with our family empowerment services. And with a partnership with another agency, we were able to help that family get a hotel stay for another week once the kids were discharged. So we knew they were going to someplace safe. And then our FEP counselor continued to follow up, was visiting the family at the hotel. A couple weeks later, we got a call from mom pretty late at night, and she was sharing what we had all worried about, which was that there was some pretty significant domestic violence in their relationship and that she was going to be leaving that relationship. So our FEP counselor was able to work with her through that, get the kids back in for care, connect with a local shelter. And through this process and continuing to kind of walk alongside that parent over the course of a couple of months and a lot of partnerships, that family is now housed. Mom and the kids are now housed. Dad is not in the picture anymore. But we really, that I think it just illustrates kind of the sort of work that we're doing and what that looks like, you know, that crisis piece, but then also helping to move towards stability. So I know last week a lot of the providers had mentioned just kind of the severity of the need, and we are really seeing that as well. I think we had hoped that at this point in the pandemic, things would be starting to even out, but for our fragile families that are that have had so many hardships just over and over again, we're really seeing things start to escalate. So we have seen an increase in domestic violence that's going on with families when they reach out. We are also at, since the start of the pandemic, 33%, so 1 in 3 of our families has had 1 or more episodes of homelessness. So just thinking about kind of that level of need that we're seeing and the intensity of those situations, it's been a lot. And so I know our FEP team has been very focused on crisis intervention. We've had 57 drive-through giveaway days in St. Charles County offering basic needs supplies for families and things like that as well. So we continue to respond to that need. Of course, though, at the heart of what we do is that emergency respite care, and we are very proud that we've continued to provide that throughout the pandemic, and just so thankful for our partners through this. So I would be more than happy to answer any questions about the nursery, about our application, about our outcomes, anything like that.
Are there any questions on the board?
Hey, Lindsay, this is Melinda. I think I might have missed exactly what you said. I was interested in what percentage of your families are either homeless or facing potential homelessness. And then of those families, are you tracking them to see, have they been able to attain stable housing, and are they being able to maintain it?
Yeah, so for our families, it's 85% of our families that are facing significant poverty, where they're really struggling to meet basic needs. For the families that we serve, it's 1 in 3 that has had 1 or more episodes of homelessness during the pandemic, looking at that time frame. So that doesn't mean that every time that we've been engaged with them, they're during, you know, having a period of homelessness, but at least once, one of the engagements that we've had with them during the pandemic, they haven't had a place to stay. So the way that we measure that, we have a couple of different ways that we measure family stability. So one of them is during respite care, we're looking just at that basic goal completion. So we're looking at, for our families that are homeless when they come in or they don't have a place to stay, what percentage of them are meeting goals by discharge. And that is about 95%. So it's a little lower than our overall goal completion, but it's still pretty high, where they have a safe place to go. Now, that doesn't mean that it's like a forever safe place, but it means that they have a safe place to go at the end, and they didn't when they first came in. With our family empowerment program, that's where we're really measuring more of that long-term success, and we measure that based on the treatment plans that we're setting with families, and then we're checking in on that goal completion as we go along the process with them. And again, it's about 60% of our families that have some further engagement with our FEP program, so it's not all of them. We do attempt, we call every single family every time they use the nursery within a week of care to check in and see how they're doing and try to get them connected with FEP, but it just really depends on kind of where they're at, whether they're ready to engage in that process.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? Say, before we go to the next presentation, well, first I want to thank you very much for your presentation, very informative. Followed quite well with your application. Before I go to the next person, did we have an established time period for the presentations last week?
I mean, we have an order and we think that it will be 10 to 15 minute presentation.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to know, because that was about right.
And also, Daddy has a question. How many of families were homeless that used the nursery? I think you said 1/3 of the families, but do you have numbers in hand?
So if we're talking about our unduplicated families, so let me see. I can email her the exact number. It should be 1/3 of our unduplicated families, which would have been, since the start of the pandemic, it was 318 kids. So right around 100 children.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. And with that, we will hear from Saints Joachim and Ann. That would be, looks like Brittany Morgan and Kathy Henderson. Going to tag team.
Yep. She'll be in at the end. So hi, everyone. I am Brittany Morgan. I'm the Director of Program Services at St. Joachim and Ann Care Service. This year, the Care Service actually had a big milestone. We celebrated our 40th anniversary. So we have been continuing our mission, which is to serve those in crisis and to prevent homelessness and hunger for 40 years now. The Care Service is one of the largest social service agencies in the Tri-County area of St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren County. We serve low-income households who earn at or below 50% of the area median income level set by HUD. So for example, a family of 4 cannot earn more than $42,450. However, nearly 50% of those that we serve are usually under the 25%. So that means a family of 4 that we serve, they're normally earning around $22,000 annually a year. The Care Service addresses the comprehensive and complex needs of families and individuals facing crisis, and this includes homelessness, hunger, mental and physical health disorders, lack of basic necessities, untimely death, multiple issues that confront families, and then just poverty as a whole. The Care Service's core programs are housing, children and family development, street outreach, food pantry, and adopt a family. Our integrative programs utilize a wraparound philosophy of care, as each individual and family served is connected to individualized services and resources through the comprehensive case management and financial assistance that we offer. This model ensures that the basic needs of our clients are met by facilitating self-sufficiency, which is necessary for creating long-term sustainability. In August of this year, the Care Service became a Healthy Families affiliate through the Nurturing Network, which is a collaboration between Lutheran Family and Children's Services, Family Forward, and Good Shepherd Children and Family Services. This is an additional prevention and early intervention that we're able to provide our at-risk families in St. Charles with children that are prenatal or under the age of 3. So when a crisis occurs, for whatever reason, clients either reach out to the Care Service directly or refer to us by one or more of the service providers in the region, most of which come through the Continuum of Care's coordinated entry referral system. The Care Service is a lead referral agency, as we receive about 40% of the coordinated entry referrals, and we have strong partnerships with many of the service providers in the area. So we often collaborate in order to connect homeless families and individuals to services quickly and successfully. CAB funds are very critical to the Care Service and the community as a whole. These funds provide us with the leverage to match other funding sources and fill the gaps that other funding cannot provide. This looks like gas cards to help clients get to and from work, temporary hotel until permanent housing can be found, utility assistance to avoid disconnection of services, and case management, which we know is crucial to getting to the root of the problem in order to obtain sustainability. CAB funding also allows us to extend services beyond a month when needed to provide greater stability for our families. With limited to no shelter space available in the area, providing financial housing and client-centered case management is imperative to those facing homelessness. The Care Service continues to develop strong relationships with landlords who can provide affordable housing and are willing to work with clients who often have complex backgrounds. Between these strong relationships and utilizing the housing first approach and rapid rehousing, we were able to house and stabilize those who are most vulnerable and have the most complex barriers. I'm actually happy to report that in the past month alone, the Care Service has housed 7 families. This included 3 single mothers, 2 single fathers, one single male that was from our street outreach, and then one single youth that was through our partnership with Youth in Need. All of these families were at a homeless status at the time that they entered their program. The care service continues to meet or exceed the outcomes that we set each year. Our outcomes align with the needs of the community and are tracked and measured through follow-up survey calls to our clients 3 to 6 months after last service delivered. Our homeless clients served are also contacted 12 months after exiting their program. In 2020, the funding provided through CAB and other funding sources allowed the care service to assist 398 households. Of those households, 90% reported living in a place that was safe, secure, and stable. Our goal is 80%. 68% of these families were housed within 40 days or less of entering a housing program. Our goal is 60%. 90% of the homeless families who exited the housing program exited to permanent housing. Our goal is 80%. 98% of the families did not become homeless within 3 months after receiving financial assistance. Our goal is 80%. And 74% that exited our program to permanent housing did not become homeless again within a year. And our goal on that one is 50%. So as I end my presentation, I want to highlight the care service's vision, which is safe and affordable housing, because we believe it's a fundamental human right, and we envision a community where no person spends the night without food or shelter. And as you can see, our success and longevity of our programs represents the community's trust and our ability to make a difference with the funds that we've been entrusted to use and serve the most vulnerable. So on behalf of the care service, thank you again to the board and to everyone on this call, because each one of you plays a role in serving our community. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope Kathy Henderson, our Director of Program Services, is on this call as well to help. Thank you.
John, you are muted.
Sorry. I don't see Kathy Henderson on the list.
I don't either. It's okay.
Okay. Well, it may not be well known, but I hate Teams. It's probably for me. I trying to use it on a Mac. I'm always having trouble getting logged in, and so it could very well be the issue. So when you work with people who are behind in their rent or mortgage or whatever, are you doing work to help them access the federal funds to do that besides using your funds or our funds?
We are. So it really is individualized. It depends on what it is that they need. Sometimes the idea or the ideal situation would be if we could access both. If some of the funds if we're applying our funds for the arrears and maybe they're having like the safer application for funds moving forward, those are the ideal situations. But we kind of look at what's going to best fit their need at that time. But we've helped with applications. We see what's the best fit for the family.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Board, do you have any questions? Again, a constantly excellent application. We get lots of the information from there. So thank you, even though we missed out on Kathy.
She's more of the question person, so I'm happy to help. Yeah, I'll have to let her know.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So now we'll have the Tri-County Probation and Parole.
Yeah. Esther's going to be the one speaking.
Okay.
Should I start?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. My name is Esther Angelos, and I have been the treasurer for the Tri-County Advisory Board to Probation and Parole since it started back in 1991. We are a unique organization in that all of our members of our board volunteer their services. We have approximately 10 members at this time. That number changes during the year. Since all board members volunteer their time, all the money that we earn through fundraising, donations, and grants goes directly into helping keep the community safe by keeping those on probation and parole on a forward path. We do so by helping the indigent clients that are under supervision of District 17 of Probation and Parole. This board supports the goal of the Missouri Department of Corrections that promotes public safety by helping men and women on probation or parole lead productive lives within the community. It costs a whole lot more to have somebody in jail than it does for them to stay out in the community. The Tri-County Citizens Advisory Board and the Missouri Department of Corrections realize that it often takes many elements within the community to help these people become successful. At the present time, there are over 2,000 people under supervision of District 17 in St. Charles County. These individuals are St. Charles County residents and could very well be a neighbor who just made a bad choice and finds themselves now on probation or parole from jail. If the men and women released on parole or placed on probation lack the appropriate and necessary tools to become productive, they have a greater potential to become a public safety risk and are at risk to reoffend and wind up either going to jail for the first time or going back to jail. Community safety is the major concern of this board. We help create safer communities by creating opportunities for these individuals to succeed within the community by offering them what we call a helping hand when it is needed. That is why we are asking for your assistance in helping our indigent clients. Let's face it, society is typically sympathetic to those that are less fortunate, but individuals who have been involved in the criminal justice system are not, of course, as well regarded. The Tri-County Advisory Board is committed to the belief that these individuals should be shown the same compassion and caring as other community members when help is needed. The indigent men and women we serve often need support from their community to become and remain rehabilitated and productive members within the community itself. Unfortunately, due to their low income, many cannot pay for court-mandated programs and treatment and also meet their personal and family needs. We have found that more than 50% of those on probation and parole are unemployed and have been for some time. In 2020, we made 95 grants, but unfortunately, due to COVID, we weren't able, as an organization, we weren't able to get together the entire year. Like I said, approximately 80% of those clients are unemployed or underemployed. If the help they receive from us keeps them from reoffending, then we have met our main goal. In the 2021 grant, the money used from this organization made 39 grants. In 2021-22, we've already made 43 grants. We have found that this year, due to not being able to have any fundraisers in the year 2020 because of COVID, we've had to reduce the amounts that we give at any one time. So when we used to give them the maximum of 600, we're now giving them 300, and when they get done with using that, they come back to us. And the hope is we will still have enough money to help them finish what they started. The maximum grant amount available to our clientele stands at $600 per individual per calendar year. With this, we hope to serve more people. Our grant proposal focuses on mental health, substance abuse evaluations, treatment, medication, counseling services, as well as help in maintaining housing and utility services. Out of the approximately 2,000 on probation and parole, we know that 54 of them are homeless at this point in time. It doesn't seem like much, but you also have their families as well, and they can't find a place to live, then they're usually out doing things they should not be doing. All of these services are essential for these individuals so that employment can be obtained or maintained. It is also important to remember that by providing assistance to our clientele, you also are helping their children. The children of our clients are 6 times more likely to become our next generation of offenders. We know that if their parents are successful, the children have a better chance at remaining out of the criminal justice system by following examples. Like I said, in 2020, we were unable to have any fundraisers. We normally have 3. This September was the first time we were able to have a fundraiser, and we had our craft fair at Calvary Church. Our small group of volunteers annually raise around, when we were able to have all our functions, $6,000. This year, we have already approved grants totaling more or close to $20,000. In addition to the clients who received the grants, more than 138 family members or significant others have been directly affected. Children, parents who they may be living with, those types of things. We're here asking for your assistance again so that we can continue to help our clientele succeed and remain productive within the community. Like I said before, the cost to send them to jail or prison is much more than it is to help them stay out and be productive within the community. The monetary support you give us for our indigent clients make it possible for them to have a better chance at being successful within the community in which you all live. At the same time, you will help promote public safety, which benefits all St. Charles residents. And I would like to close with a quote. This may be the one I used last year, but it has, I think, one of the most important meanings. We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. That was by Winston Churchill. If there are any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them. You're on mute.
Board,
There you
are
go.
there questions from the board? Dave?
Dave,
You're
you are muted.
Am I okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Esther,
Yes.
I greatly admire your organization. They're all favorites, but I greatly admire what you and your little band of volunteers do. And I'm just wondering, I know COVID's kind of slowed down the court system. Did it slow down the amount of activity from the Board of Parole and Probation in Jeff City? Or
No, I think in effect, they didn't house any prisoners. They didn't house people in our jails. They were simply fast-tracked, I think, to some degree through the system and put on probation or on parole, maybe more parole than probation. They were let out of the jail and put on probation. So the numbers did not go down, even with COVID, the number of actual clients. Now, the probation parole officers, of course, weren't able to actually see them for a number of months.
Okay.
So, keeping on track. And then a lot of the providers also did not work in 2020. But everybody's back now. All the providers are back that we use. So we're trying, getting them into the treatment programs, alcohol, drugs, those types of things. Like you say, we are small, but we try and get as much as we can, follow through to do.
Thank
Okay. I note in your application that you have a goal to help end homelessness among vets in 5 years. And but your numbers, the numbers that you show, do you have the veterans still included in your ex-offender numbers? Because you don't show a percentage of veterans that you've helped in the past year.
Of course, I honestly don't know how many we have at this point in time. We're trying to collect numbers from the officers. See, we don't have access to it. The officers have to give it to us before we can get that. We're beginning now towards the end of this year to collect those types of things. I just found out yesterday about the number of homeless that we have. I was expecting a higher number. Fortunately, I think a lot of our parolees and probationers have moved back in with their parents, just like a lot of other people had during this time frame. Our vets, they are able to get help through other organizations too, fortunately. And they get their, some of them are getting their disability or their veterans benefits. So I think that's why we may not have as many as a lot of other organizations.
So do you have on your intake, do you have a separate intake form for people that are referred to you?
We have an application that the officers actually fill out. It gives them identifying information, and then it says what they need the money for. In other words, they need it to start batters intervention. That's a program that we have seen an uptick in numbers beyond belief in terms of programs, people having to go through programs court ordered, men and women.
All right. So what I would suggest that maybe you want to see if they're on their application that they forward to you, if they're capturing veterans information, because if you have it as a goal, if you don't have that broken out, you won't ever know if you're achieving it or not.
Okay.
So I would just suggest that.
No.
Okay.
I'll add.
Have any questions?
Yeah, John, I had a question. Esther, I also wanted to echo, just thank you for that. It's such a unique service. I know I have two of my bonus foster children that unfortunately have had to come through the system, and the barriers that they've come from coming out of prison, it just seems like insurmountable. So I appreciate the efforts that you did. I just wanted to, I wanted to make sure I had a number straight in my head. So did you say that in a typical year, outside of COVID, that you're able to raise $6,000, but this year you were able to raise $20,000?
No. That's from grants and stuff too.
Gotcha.
Most of our income comes from grants. Right now, we're waiting to hear from Boeing, Ameren, and Quiver River, but we only get small amounts.
Sure. I was just wondering if you were able to. I was just wondering if you're able to triple your fundraising 3 times. That you probably didn't share that magic pill with somebody. So.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, being that we only have, in actuality, we only have about 5 of us that are actually do all the legwork. The legwork. So yeah. So like I said, the craft fair that we just had, we made about $1,800.
Excellent.
And if we give 3 grants at $600, there's 3 grants right there, and that's the $1,800. Yeah. The only things that we don't use, that we use are the money we raise for is we have to pay an accountant, and those are unbelievable, just to pay somebody to tell us that we have money and that type of thing.
I feel like someone should.
Yes.
That's all.
But
that's
our money that we actually raise the organization, we have to, there's not a lot, but we have to, pay the auditor, buy checks, those little things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we couldn't even do that because we don't use our grant money for any of that. There's nothing out of the grant money that goes anywhere but for client services.
Yeah, well, hopefully, going forward, that these grantees are becoming more enlightened and understand that it's pretty near impossible to do work if you can't use it to get people to help you do the work, or keep the lights on and so forth. I mean, in my work past, that was the case, but I've been working with some other federations and foundations rather, and they're becoming more enlightened to allow you
Well,
to have some.
fortunately for us, Probation Pro office over off of Cave Springs,
Mhm,
the office itself is where we meet once a month.
mhm.
And they provide paper, the room, those types of things for us. So that's why we're able to, get by without having outward expenses.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the service and thank you for the presentation. And if there are no more questions from the board, then I would like to call upon NECAC, would be Karen Ford or Lindsay Rudd.
Hi, it's Karen Ford. I am the intake assistant here at the St. Charles County NACAC office. Also by phone, we do have our new county coordinator joining, Carrie Dina. So we are welcoming her as well this evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
All right. So she will be joining the meetings probably from now on. But I will go ahead and proceed with the presentation this evening. So NECAC stands for Northeast Community Action Corporation, and we strive to make a difference by empowering people, improving lives, and building communities. We were established in 1965, and we grew to become the largest community action agency in Missouri for geographical territory with 12 counties in the service area. With our 12 counties, we have over 60 different programs, and we're governed by a 36-member board of directors. During COVID, our outreach staff was in the office the whole time. We did close our lobby to clients for only 1 month, which we handled all of our business by phone, emails, fax, and mail. So our clients still had access to all of our services that we offered. Other than that, we were open during COVID for the whole time, basically, except for that 1 month we closed our lobby because we felt that our services were needed during COVID more than ever. Regardless, we needed to have our services available to those that needed it. Because we serve fragile individuals and families living in poverty. We do work closely with Coordinated Entry and other agencies in the community for referrals for our services, or they may call us directly. And then once we receive those referrals, or when they come into our office or they call us, we have an intake process that we do. So we do a comprehensive intake process, which helps us determine eligibility for NECAC's programs and services. We do an assessment, which is an interview conducted to assess the family's needs. And then we do referrals, whether they're referred to NECAC programs and services or to other agencies in the community. So within NECAC, we have several different programs and wraparound services that we're able to refer our clients to as well. So we have several different energy assistance programs, which is LAHEAP. We have emergency energy assistance programs at ESIP. We have emergency rental assistance for evictions, rental arrears, and deposits. We have Show Me the Way classes, which are life skills classes. We have WIC, which is supplemental nutrition program. Family planning, which is for women's services, birth control, and STD testing. In-home services, if they need in-home care. We have Skill Up and the I program, which is an employment and education program to promote employability and self-sufficiency. We have weatherization, which includes cost-effective, energy-efficient measures for existing residential and multifamily housing, which can be for renters and homeowners. And then we have home ownership, group and individual counseling to homeowners to prospective homeowners to help them on their path to home ownership. And then we have our HUD Section 8 rental assistance program, housing subsidy. And then we also have case management, which we also do with all of our, those that we help with emergency rental assistance. So I do have our 2020 outcomes here. So even during COVID, we had very good numbers here of being able to help our clients. So for hotel and temporary housing, we helped 4 individuals and 3 families. Rental assistance and homeless prevention, we helped 33 individuals and 13 families. And then case management, we helped 37 individuals and 16 families. And then in 2021, just kind of want to give you an idea where we're at as of right now. For hotel and temporary housing, we have 3 individuals and 2 families. Rental assistance and homeless prevention, we have 11 individuals and 8 families. And then we added the Project Cares, where the gap services that you guys provided us this year. So far, we've helped 15 individuals and 7 families with those services. And then case management, we've done 29 individuals and 17 families. I kind of wanted to end it with today with a success story. So I had a 54-year-old disabled woman come into our office mid-October. Said she was, this is the word that she used, I don't like to use homeless, but she used that word specifically, and said she was sleeping in her car. So it just happened to be early in the morning before any of my other appointments came in. So I asked her to come back into my office, and I did an intake with her, try to learn a little bit more about her situation and try to help alleviate some of her stress. She explained that she was previously staying with her son. However, her words again, he no longer needed her, and she was told that she had to leave. So I looked her up in the coordinated entry system just to kind of see if she was already in the system and kind of see what notes were made. It seemed to be an ongoing situation in the past few months where she had been in and out of her son's home. So it's kind of seemed to be a past record with her and her son having issues. So during our visit, she mentioned that she had already applied for the Section 8 waiting list and filled out applications for a couple different apartment complexes, but she hadn't heard back from any of them yet. She did say that she received $108 in SNAP benefits, but it really wasn't enough to last her throughout the month and her situation, is what she said. She said she'd been eating mostly snacks because she had nowhere to prepare or warm up food. At that time, my heart just kind of sunk. I had a can of soup in my office. So I offered it to her. I said, "You want a warm bowl of hot soup?" She said, "No, I'm fine." And then she said that she had spent time in laundromats, parks, and several different parking lots in the last 2 weeks. She said her biggest concern was when she had no place to store a needed medication, which requires refrigeration. She said that it was cold sleeping in her car last night, which was the night before she came here, and she was worried about running out of gas. So I reached out to the program Neighbors Helping Neighbors through Calvary Church for help with a gas card, and she asked for a blanket in case she had to sleep in her car again on another cold night. She asked me to contact one of the apartment complexes that she had applied for on her behalf, so I did that as well. Before she left, I gave her some food, hygiene items, laundry detergent, a list of food pantries and other resources in the community. I explained to her that I wanted to help her with temporary housing and work with her on establishing permanent housing as well. But she needed to work on she didn't have a current award letter. So I needed her proof of income before I could help her with a hotel stay. So I asked her to work on that for me and to keep in contact with me, which she did. On October 27th, I was able to help her with a 2-week hotel stay. The exciting news is, as of Monday, she called me and said that she was approved for an apartment. So with the cab funds, NECAC will be able to help her also with the deposit to get her moved into this place. We'll also help her create a budget to remain on track, provide wraparound services and case management. Just her motto all along the way was, this will never happen again. And I will be right along her side to make sure this becomes a reality. So thank you for your ongoing support. Just to kind of let you know where your funds go and how much it is appreciated. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Well, thank you very much. Board, do we have any questions? There being no questions. Thank you so much for the presentation and for that heartwarming story. I mean, you can only do what you can do, and certainly you made a difference there, you know, and if all of us are making a difference, even if it's just one person, it adds up.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So next, so the next presenter is a stranger for sure, from Link.
The strange one. I get it. I get it. Hey, I'm going to do a community commercial. That's okay. So we'll take a break for just seconds.
Okay.
I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting, and I missed my mark there. I just want to brag on our community for a moment, and it's about helping the homeless during cold temperatures, 20 degrees and colder. So this Saturday will be the green light go for our EWR, our Emergency Weather Response Program. That's an umbrella under the COC, under the Community of Care. It's exciting. I need to just brag on our community for a moment. Though this is a tri-county, Lincoln, Warren, and St. Charles County effort, much of what we see, the larger population of the program is St. Charles County. And but what's really exciting, last winter, with our problem of COVID and warming centers at churches and volunteers, and just didn't seem like we had so many obstacles, but the weather was still going to be cold, so we had to problem solve. We started the season with around $8,000 and put out the word, especially in the February when we had 15 consecutive nights of 20 degrees or colder. Now this beats a record. The most we had ever done like that is 3 or 4 nights in a row of 20 degrees and colder. So 15 nights predicted, and of course we all experienced them. We had already spent our $8,000 in the first few nights that we activated, Christmas Eve, things like that. So we started with 8,000. We had a community cry for help, and we received $100 grand, $100,000 within that 15-day problem. $100,000 for that 15-day consecutive problem. I'm serious. It was amazing. As much as I cried thinking, what are we going to do? I cried rejoicing of how many people just come together, private and business and churches and agencies. It was amazing to be part of that team and experience that. So with that said, we have a couple of churches willing to volunteer. We have some volunteers. So we're going to mix it up this year. We're trying to announce that we have a warming place for the night. So we don't advertise hotels and we don't advertise warming centers. And we try to do transportation if we can. But we are starting our season with $51,000. And so we are able to take care of some hotel spending as well as taxi spending. And so we're very excited that we had $51,700 left over to start the new EWR season. It will start this Saturday and it will run through March 12th. This is exciting. Last winter season, the EWR, and this is record breaking, we gave 921 beds. 921 bed nights, we call them bed nights. 921 beds. So if we served, I think 4 days were outside of that, 15-day consecutive plus the 15-day consecutive, we served 921 bed nights through the Tri-County area. Now we do have some concern. We have hotel issues. We don't have enough availability for hotels. We ran into the problem last year, but even like through our summer, it continued because like GM plant, that was 3 or 4 of our West End hotels. And there just isn't the availability as much as we used to see. Hotels would like to serve at market value and really don't want to offer homeless population to stay. So we talked earlier as a COC team behind the scenes that we are having a hotel issue and we are having a rooms shortage. So we are a little concerned with how we have money this year to start the season, but we are a little concerned on the hotels. Does anyone have any questions about EWR? We do have a success story with EWR. A lady who didn't have an ID and who got in, well, then she got in trouble for drug trafficking in her hotel in St. Charles. So we, for her warm night, she had to go to the church warming center if she wanted to stay warm for the night. And so reluctantly she went, and she got there around 9 or 10 and was still talking at 2 a.m. to 2 ladies on staff at the church when it was shift change at 2 a.m. So they were still talking full blown. Well, the next morning she called the church saying, hey, thank you for being a warming center and thank you for the time you talked to me all night long. She said, I checked myself into drug rehab today. What was really fun is she came back to that church in Winsville and in August and said, hey, I don't want anything. I just wanted you all to know thank you that I'm still drug free. So that's my EWR commercial because I'm very passionate about that program and the community of how we work together so well. How many churches do you have? And I didn't catch it all, but there's only like 1 to 2 offering their location. And again, it's still trying to find volunteers to staff that overnight as well. We have one church who is committed to the 3rd week of every calendar month for the 4 winter months. So that's my EWR commercial.
All right. Thank you.
Link, Love in the Name of Christ. We're focused on helping those who can't help themselves, just to someone struggling a little bit, having a, if we can catch it before they're having an overwhelming crisis, we all know that works much better. Prevention, if we can at all possible, keep an address, keep kids in their own school. We like to think of ourselves as just part of the team and the first responders in the West End of the St. Charles County with crisis assistance to those who are at jeopardy of possibly losing their home or the things that go with it. If you don't have your electricity turned on, then you're breaking your lease. So things that just may help someone stay in their home. We have a strong focus of how we serve in Winsville and O'Fallon. So we see quite a few residents from, of course, Winsville, and our sister connection would be O'Fallon. That was the next largest city that we serve. We like to give individual attention because everybody's blueprint of their crisis it may look a little different. So we love case management. We love to spend that couple of hours with someone to say, where have you been, where are you at now, and what are your goals that you've set for your future, and how might we help with that? What are the barriers, the gaps, the possibility? Is it childcare that's not as affordable? We have that. If it's food pantry, if it's wraparound services, supportive services, clothing, fun things like that. So the people that we are served, they're facing their crisis. in the working poor are 50% or less median income. The dynamics have changed quite a bit this year. It seems like we once served, I'm trying to find a job, or I just have a minimum wage, low income type job. But this past year was so unpredictable and different with the different stimulus checks that families received and the increase in food stamps. Some of the things were a little bit more unpredictable through the spring and summer, and we really didn't even know what to expect. But our eyes have certainly been open since August, September, October, November. We are experiencing, like everyone, I'm sure, a very high volume of calls on homelessness, hotels, prevention of homeless. Let me give you an example of fundings that we're at right now. We had an increase of a new grant this year, and that gave us $23,000 extra just all for family services, which we also had another duplicated pocket we had partnered with. So we had an extra $46,000 at our fingertips to spend on people. And that had to be spent by the end of October. And of course we spent it all. We didn't have to return anything. And then with our CCRB, our St. Charles County Families with Children, we had a wraparound homeless prevention or homelessness in the way of $30,000. And we are almost finished with that funding. It will end in December, and we're really close to finishing that. We also had the COVID relief monies that you're aware of because you allowed that and made that possible. So we have the original 39,000-ish from round one COVID relief money. And then we also have the 50,000 sitting there to keep as a safety net. We are finding that most people are not affected necessarily by COVID. So we really have only spent about 30% of the first pocket and haven't touched the second safety net yet. Just to give you the update on our COVID money from our agency. What's fun is CAB, we weren't focusing as much on spending your money because we always use you until the end of February. Which is a bonus and a blessing in life if you've never experienced what that season's like to be in winter and not have any funds. But right now, today, we're around 76% of spending your CAB money that you awarded to us. So we'll have to stretch that out the best we can between now and the end of February. Success story is John, a single individual who's been living in his van since 2016. I had known him since 2008, in and out of drug rehab back in the day, evictions and things like that. But he had been clean and sober for a long time, bad health now, and a really bad attitude. In fact, if I gave it initials, probably most everybody would be like, oh, yes. Cuss you out, scream in the whole lobby of things, can't get along with anyone. But partnering with the mainstream housing voucher with NECAC, we were able to get this disabled gentleman his cute little house in Winsville. And now he is happy, he's healthier, he's friendly. He says thank you every time, we talk to him. And it was such a turnaround to see this individual get a home and see what difference it makes coming out of your van. We got a mommy. We have lots of mommies, but we have a mommy with 4 kids. I met her through EWR through the winter, and she's been living in her home, and just a very humbled, sweet little group. The kids even come in, and I get to meet them too, but they live out of their car. They stay in contact and go to school through the Winsville School District, and the Winsville Crisis Counselor and myself will try to do emergency things for them from time to time and give them a break in a hotel or gas cards or back to school or whatever that might look like. So to me, that was an example of a mom with kids, as well as a single individual man. We're all about their part, our part. We focus on accountability, to help ensure the success of their outcome, like follow through with their goals. We call them at the 30-day mark. We call them at the 90-day mark. We are, I would say, 99.9% in our 30-day mark of success. However, I'll be, it ain't even me, it's a team of people, but I'll humbly say 95% and 75% for at least 90 days in their home and in their address for the St. Charles County. What questions might you have for us, for me?
Are there any questions from the board?
John?
Yes.
Yeah, Kathy, hi. You really need to be more enthusiastic, Kathy. You really need.
That's cute. I'm even 14 days off of a COVID couch. So it's kind of like, ooh, I feel like I am so excited to be back to work. That was rough. Yeah.
I do.
That
No,
was rough.
I do have a question. It doesn't concern Lincoln. It concerns the warming center.
Sure.
Like on a typical night, how many people do you get to serve show up?
At a warming center?
Yeah, at a warming center. Yeah.
There's also two different answers.
Okay.
At a warming center, we try, our goal would be outside of COVID to have a church on an east end and a west end of our tri-county area of our St. Charles County. And you could have anywhere from 2 to 12. Downtown by the river, city of St. Charles in the river area, that's where our highest numbers are.
So do you provide food and coffee and things of that nature?
We do.
Yeah, for the
Oh,
night.
some churches give a whole warm buffet, breakfast buffet, if they have their health department certificate that says they can cook. And so it's like, we always fight to try to say, oh, I'll work and volunteer overnight on that. I mean, it is like Golden Corral kind of breakfast. So, but a lot of times, it's here's a to-go, keep it simple. I mean, we really do try to keep it simple and not cost anyone anything is the real goal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's a great service. I really do.
It's a huge team effort, that's for sure. That's why I wanted to brag on the EWR team. It used to be 170 volunteers. Of course, last year was probably 12 to 15. So yeah, we're ready.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Question, yes.
Pat?
How do the people find out about the warming center? Where to go? How do you get the word out to them?
Those are good questions.
Where
Calvaryman Rivers has printed our business cards every year. It's always been the same hotline number. We use a Google Voice system. So it could be either 2 dispatchers on for the evening, or when we were super busy, there was 7 of us working on one of those nights. But we've rented free. The health department and the county government has given us the use of big billboards that would say, the number to call, that type of thing. But it really is advertising a warm night stay on those little business cards. Transportation may be available, and it's just passing out those cards. So they can be picked up at various locations. I would recommend the COC, the Community Council office, and just start passing out those cards. You see them standing in intersections with signs, give them the card. You can always tell someone to call 211 because we're working with coordinated entry through the daytime hours and referring to the weather too. So we are working together. If it's easier for you all to remember the 211, it'll also get to the weather dispatch team in the evening.
Good. Any further questions? Okay, well, Kathy, thank you. Good to see you again. And the folks out west really appreciate your services.
Thank you so much. You guys make it possible.
Okay. Now, does anyone need a water break before we do the last 2? Or would you like to press on? Well, that silence sounds like press on. So that means that we'll now hear from Bridgeway or the Preferred Health, Katie Brusson and Mary Jones.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Good. My name is Mary Jones. I'm the community manager with Bridgeway's Domestic Violence Program, also known as the Women's Center in St. Charles. So I'm glad to be here this evening to talk a little bit about our program and services that we offer our community. The Women's Center has been open since the mid-1970s, and we remain the only domestic violence shelter in St. Charles County. I wanted to talk a little bit about pre-COVID times, how shelter looked, and how things have changed a little bit since we've entered the pandemic. Typically, we have 25 beds available at the Women's Center, 20 are earmarked for women, 5 for children. Since COVID ramped up, the coalition, Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, also known as MCADSV, recommended that shelters go to only housing 1 family per room, simply because of the social distancing, slowing the spread, and things like that. With that being said, our shelter now has the capacity to house 5 families at one time. So I want to talk a little bit about what shelter life looks like when someone enters our program. We also have an outreach program as well. An outreach client has the exact same needs that a shelter client has, with the exception of the shelter component. So these are people that we work with on case management, legal service referrals, professional therapy, any type of service that we offer. It's offered both to an in-house client as well as an outreach client. We have a partnership. Being under the umbrella Preferred Family Healthcare, we are fortunate in that we have a partnership with that program. The lion's share of Preferred Family Healthcare's programs are what is called SUD, or substance use disorder based. And what that means is that when someone enters our program, if they want to engage in any type of recovery program, whether it's for drugs or alcohol, we can help them access that program while being a part of our shelter as well, or again, as an outreach client. The positive thing there is we can get access that services a lot quicker than we could, they could if they were just out on their own. So a lot of times if we've got somebody that has a drug or alcohol issue in shelter with us, they participate in shelter, they attend meetings during the day. If somebody needs inpatient, we won't hold their bed, we'll help them access it inpatient, and then they can return to shelter once they complete that program. So that really does set Preferred, our Bridgeway, our program, apart from a lot of shelters, as we've got that partnership with Preferred Family Healthcare. So we're very fortunate about that. So again, I want to talk a little bit about COVID times. Like everybody else who presented tonight, we really felt the sting of COVID as far as our hotline numbers went and people accessing services. The thought behind that was we felt like probably people remained in the home with their abuser, so that the chance to make a phone call safely to find out more about our program was limited. Kids probably were at home, virtual learning. So we had to get a little bit creative in how we offered our services. What we did is we started doing a lot of things virtually. We started virtual support groups. Our therapist met with clients virtually as well. So if I would say anything positive has come out of COVID for us as a program, we've learned that we can expand the reach of our services to include folks who may not have access to get into shelter to talk to someone. They can now do that virtually, again, through support groups and therapy and case management, all being done either in person or virtually. I need to take a drink of water. I apologize. Sorry about that. We also picked up our Facebook presence. So we advertise a lot of our groups and services on Facebook, the hope being that someone will have access to social media throughout the day and can kind of check in to see what we've got going on within the program. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is our follow-up program. Once someone exits the program, our work, sometimes we say, is just beginning. How can we help these clients stay safe once they exit the shelter or once they no longer need our outreach services? So what we do is our case manager reaches out to the people who exit shelter. Typically, we try to make that first connection within the first 24 hours of them leaving shelter. Sometimes, and it sounds kind of silly, but people that are in shelter come to rely on the shelter staff as that support system. So they go from having someone available to talk 24 hours a day to maybe being on their own. And we all know domestic violence is very isolating. So to go from having someone in shelter with you all the time to being on your own is very, it's hard for a lot of people. So we want to make sure our clients know that once you exit shelter, you are in no means on your own. You can still check in with us. We will make that connection again, hopefully within the first 24 hours of them leaving the program, to check in to say, how are you doing? What kind of resources can we offer you? Answer any questions they have, make any connections they need. So we check in at that first hour mark, and then within the first month, we want to make another 1 to 2 contacts with that person, and then we go to 30, 60, 90 days making those contacts. So a success story I want to talk about really quickly is I had a client reach out to shelter a couple of weeks ago, and she had been an outreach client for a number of years. And she said, is there any Thanksgiving programs that you know of for turkeys? And it kind of was the clue that maybe something was going on in her family. So I asked her, is everything okay? And she talked about how she's got 4 children in the home and she's not receiving child support on a consistent basis. So she's struggling financially and wanted to provide that turkey dinner for her family. So in the conversation with her, she said, Mary, I've got this title loan that I took out against my vehicle. I bought the vehicle in the spring and now it's August and it's time for school to start. I need things for my children, clothes, supplies. So I took a title loan out to make ends meet. She did that in August. And here we are. We had contact with her in October and she initially took out a $3,000 loan. Come October, now she owed $3,200 because she was already behind on the payment. So I asked her, what kind of payment are you making a month on the $3,000 loan? She said $385.74 a month. And I said, how long is it going to take you to pay that loan off? And she said 3 years. So of course I get on my calculator and I figured up really quick, close to $14,000. She's going to be paying on this $3,000 loan. And of course, the minute that she defaults on that loan, now she loses her vehicle. I always say our clients walk on a slippery slope. So many times they're one step away from losing everything. And in her case, she's got 4 children in the home. She needs her vehicle. So we were able to reach out and find a couple of local resources for her. And she is currently working with a local bank to try to rework that loan within the bank to get that payment down lower and pay it off within a year, saving herself close to $10,000 in interest. So that's really just an example of how someone coming into the program, we continue to serve and help that client at whatever point they need, a year, 2 years, 3 years out. If they call us and need a resource, we want to be that person that they can go to and we can provide that resource for them. We are just now, Katie and I are starting what's called a survivor circle. And that's going to be 4 or 5 people that have been in the program at some point to kind of act as a sounding board for us to learn more about resources, because we find out that a lot of times resources are best delivered by people who access those services. So we find out a lot from our clients about different things that are out there, but we want them to be a sounding board, kind of a focus group, and also act as a resource for clients. Once they've exited the program, they can talk to somebody that's already been through the program as a source of inspiration and kind of make that community connection that so many of our clients are lacking, because again, DV is such an isolating thing to experience.
Hi, Mary, I'm going to jump in and then give some statistics. So I'm Katie Bussin. I am the program director. And so I'll give some quick statistics, both pre-COVID and after, or not after, I guess we're still dealing with it. In fact, really sad story. We just had a COVID outbreak in shelter 2 weeks ago, and we have a client currently on a ventilator in the hospital, and it does not look good. So we are still really dealing with, and that client was vaccinated. We're still just struggling with COVID. So anyway, hotline calls. So back in 2019, prior to COVID, we had 1,531 hotline calls come into Women's Center. In 2020, that number dropped to 1,016 hotline calls. And so far in 2021, we have 988 hotline calls. We are on track to be ahead of last year, but we're still not where we were in 2019. Our bed nights, as Mary said, we have 1 woman or family per room. So back in 2019, we provided 3,384 bed nights. In 2020, that was reduced to 3,083 bed nights. And we, as of right now in 2021, up to actually today, we are at 3,254 bed nights. So we're actually higher than we were throughout all of 2020. For shelter, women and children in the shelter, in 2019, we had 97 women and 58 children that we served. In 2020, that reduced to 83 women and 26 children. And this year, up to date, we are at 66 women, but we are at 61 children. So we are seeing a lot more families coming in to shelter. And then housing data, actually, this was pulled for coordinated entry for Dottie and Christy. This data was from October 1st, 2020 to September 30th of this year. And out of 140 adults served, this outreach clients and shelter clients, 99 were discharged from services into temporary housing, 27 were discharged into permanent housing, and then 19 didn't report where they were going. So it could be that they had temporary housing or permanent housing, but they didn't report that to us, or they were homeless. They did not have a place to go. And then just a little quick thing about how we measure success. This is actually something, this is a work in progress. So this year, I've started having our therapists actually utilize a couple of tools that help us measure anxiety and depression, as that is something that we see a lot with the folks that we work with. And so we're using the PHQ-9 and the GAD-7 to measure. We also use the movers, which is the measure of victim empowerment related to safety. And then we have an outcome survey and a satisfaction survey. The outcome survey is a tool that was developed off of the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence guidelines, and that measures if a victim knows more about community resources and better ways to plan for safety. So I have some data regarding that, but I also wanted to just mention that we have realized that staffing's also been an issue. I am director of the program, but also working overnight sometimes because that's just the need that we have. And so, for instance, I worked last night, so I'm almost 24 hours of working. And that's just what we're doing right now. We do what we have to do in order to keep the shelter open. But that being said, it's difficult for us to have data and like really stay on top of those things that help us just make sure that the services that we're doing are effective and that there's areas of improvement that we are actually improving those. And so we have a data analyst from Preferred Family Health who just got finished training, 10 hours of confidentiality training through Missouri Coalition Against Domestic Violence, who is going to start really gathering and tracking our data. So, and we're going to kind of figure out some different data points too. So currently, so as I said, we use the movers and the outcome survey. In 2020, clients reported, I can cope with whatever challenge comes at me as I work to keep safe. And 91% of them, after they discharged from services, said mostly true or always true. And then in 2020, I know my next steps are on the path to keeping safe. And 83% said mostly or always true, 14% sometimes or half the time true. And then our outcomes, as far as I know more about community resources, that's something that we ask upon discharge. And in 2018, the number was 78%. In 2019, it was 86%. And then last year, it was 93%. So we have been moving up, just really making sure that we are letting people know what community resources are available upon discharge. And then I know more ways to plan safety. In 2018, that was 85.75%. In 2019, it was 91.3%. And then in 2020, it was 89%, which it did go down a little bit. But we have an advocate who is really fantastic at safety planning and has provided additional training for our staff, new staff, and just refreshers. And so we're really focused on making sure that anyone that comes into our services is prepared upon leaving to make sure that they're going to remain safe. So that is our presentation. Thank you very much. And what questions do you have for us?
Board, do you have any questions? Seeing no hands. We will thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you.
John, can I add one thing real quick? And I apologize, I neglected to say this. All of the services accessed through the Women's Center are free and confidential.
Okay. I know firsthand. My sister was there years ago. And so, Dave, you had something?
I just want to thank you, John. Did you ladies state that during 2020 your numbers went down? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
I mean, I thought it was kind of anecdotal that if everybody's home during COVID, that there would be more instances of abuse going on, but maybe not.
Oh, no, there's definitely instances of abuse. It was just the access to being able to leave that situation. I think with people all being home and, working from home or losing their jobs, there's not that ability that, oh, when my abuser leaves the house, I'm able to call, or I'm able to go to my neighbor, I'm able to go to the store. Those things I think really do impact. You've had people who've been able to go to their child's school to call us. Well, with schools being closed, there's just not as much ability to get out and make those phone calls in a way that's going to be safe. So.
And I think, if I could just add, I think as well, people, I always say there's comfort in the familiar, and people remaining in their homes, at least they know what they could expect at their home, as opposed to going out into a pandemic world. What does that look like? Is it safer to remain in my home, or is it safer to try to go into a shelter not knowing what's out there? I think there was a lot of fear initially about COVID. How safe is it to move about the community? So I think, like Katie said, absolutely, the need was there, but accessing those, the safe place to call was difficult for people. So we tried again to get creative on how we can get the message out that we're still answering that 24-hour hotline. We're still there providing services, but people may not have that way to make the phone call, like Katie said. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for a very informative presentation on a dark subject with some bright results. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So with that, we will bring on Pierre Hampton from the Salvation Army in the O'Fallon Lodge.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
So thank you all for this opportunity to present. I thank you all for the partnerships that have presented today. Great presentations. Before we go any further, I'm the Regional Shelter Administrator for the Salvation Army, and we have a new shelter manager, Bridget McKinney. She started here in October, so she will be coordinating efforts. She's coming on soon with O'Fallon Lodge. You all know the Salvation Army. Salvation Army began in 1865. The efforts of William and Catherine Booth. They did street outreach. They turned it into a ministry that we still do today with our shelter and housing programs throughout the 4 regions. The O'Fallon Lodge was incorporated in 1991. We have 7 rooms, 28 beds. I hear everyone talking about COVID. We too addressed COVID quickly. Within a week, we had policy and procedures in place. We had shelter-in-place policies. We reduced our capacity to account for social distancing. We required masks of staff and residents. We went to an individualized serving method. We did box lunches, box dinners. Everything was individualized. We didn't do no general serving to cut down on transmission. Staff and residents were tested as needed. We had the facility clean, and we too went through some challenges with COVID as well. Within the earlier months on, we too had to shift some staff around and work some people through overnights and get some various staff in place. But we continue to use our CAF funding to continue to deliver quality services. O'Fallon Lodge, as you all know, provides temporary lodging for single women and children, households with children, to provide a warm and safe place for our families to be productive, also meeting the needs, physical and mental health needs, and also spiritual needs. We're a shelter that provides spiritual assessments and part of a spiritual component. We have a core location on site that provides a church service for our residents. It's strictly voluntary if they want to do services. What makes us different is our approach. We have a whole internal network of services from our core location, spiritual guidance, to our pantry services, to our emergency social services programs, to placing veterans who come into the shelter into our veteran program, to placing people in our Midtown Treatment Center. So we have a whole gamut of services. But at the O'Fallon Lodge ourselves, we continue to provide quality case management services. Clients met with the case manager once a week. We conducted weekly group sessions which focus on issues and barriers which clients face when they came into the shelter. We worked on communication skills. We worked on job readiness. That includes resume writing. That includes mock interviewing, dress for success programs. We worked on conflict resolution. As you know, when you have people in congregate settings, there's always conflict. And we also address personal wellness and perception. So we worked on classes to build individuals, self-esteem. We also offer three nutritious meals today and linkage to community support services. We utilize CAB resources to obtain housing for folks, to pay security deposits and first month's rent. As I mentioned before, our pastoral care component, which is our core officers, are involved in the case planning development of each resident. They sit in on discharge meetings, they sit in on staff meetings, so we take a holistic approach with that as well. Some of the trends we saw during COVID, of course, as with any other facility, we did see a decrease in capacity, but we still remain open. So even though individuals were being shuffled to hotels, we still remain open for clients who did need shelter. We did see an increase in homelessness due to lack of permanent housing. 18 households previously residing in hotels and 10 families were on the streets during that time frame of March 20 through February 2021. We saw an increase in individuals paying more than 50% of their income on housing. We also saw an increase in mental health issues, and into that we had to be retrained on medication management because a lot of our individuals came with numerous medication issues and numerous medication items. So staff were kind of retrained on, dispensing of medication and recognizing mental health issues. We currently have a young lady now, and initially she came in and one, I guess, a sort of a success story. By her being in shelter and being stable in shelter, she was able to lower her glucose readings. She was averaging in the 600s. Now she's down in 200 range. So, and that's due to, being in a stable environment, having a bed to sleep in at night, and having a place just to store her medication. So we're able to work on that as well. Over 30% of individuals reported coming in during that period reported as having some type of physical or mental health disability. The one thing we do in the O'Fallon Lodge, we believe in partnerships. Partnership with the agencies on this call, partnership with the agencies that presented in October. That's the key to success, the key and the road to success for our clients. With partnerships, you're able to alleviate barriers in the community. And we worked with various agencies, St. Joachim and Ann, Our Ladies Inn, Coordinated Entry. We traded off in terms of who's going to do what in terms of the case management component, in terms of the housing. And the overall goal is to connect folks with housing. I heard someone say, what happens when families move out? We have a Pathway to Hope program that works with families from 6 months after they leave the shelter. That's a weekly, monthly phone call to check and see how clients are doing. And clients do come back. We have several clients that come back and volunteer in our pantry. They maintain that contact with the facility, maintain that contact with the shelter. And we look forward to working with them. During that time frame, we served 49 households, 28 single individuals, and 21 families. We have a single room. We normally would do 8, but due to COVID, we did 4 singles. We remain at a 90% capacity with our single individuals. Our families, we had 2 large families that were centered through coordinated entry. These were families who had exhausted hotel stays and were able to get them into shelter and able to transition them on to long-term housing. Of that 49 households during that last CAP funding period, 31 households went to permanent destinations, 11 households moved out to temporary destinations. At this time, I'd like to thank the CAP committee for reviewing our application. I also thank our partners around the table for their commitment in working with the O'Fallon Lodge to address the plight of homelessness in this region. Thank you all very much. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Board. Are there any questions for?
Can you share that of the, I think you said 49 households you served in the last funding cycle, how many went on to permanent housing versus temporary?
Oh, 31 moved to permanent
31.
destinations. Mhm.
Of those, the ones that went on to other temporary, what kind of housing was that, and what were the reasons why they weren't able to move into something more permanent?
A lot of times folks left the shelter, voluntarily left the shelter, didn't really work to pursue housing. Often we had a couple of families, they would get a call to go stay with somebody. So either with family and friends that was on a temporary basis. We had a couple of people that move out to go live in a hotel. We had 2 people that move out, and it was a temporary stay to go stay with somebody because they obtained mainstream housing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any questions? Well, Pierre, thank you very much for your presentation. Once again, you know, we year after year we hear the great work that you're doing out there, and so thanks for sticking with us tonight and providing us with this information to help us make our funding decisions. Does anyone have anything?
Let me say one thing. We have, in terms of partnerships, we often get families when they cannot be housed through O'Fallon. We have placed families in other shelters. So we have done a lot of partnership with agencies in St. Louis County as well when they cannot be placed in the O'Fallon Lodge. So all in the effort to keep people off the streets. And these are often families larger families who, when we don't have the space. So we have worked diligently with St. Louis County and St. Louis City in terms of making sure families get housed.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome. So do we have anything else good for the cause? If we do not, I'd like to thank all of the participants again for their presentations, and I'd like to thank the board for their attentiveness, participation as well. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All right.
Second.
So it's been second twice. Whatever that means. So thanks again, everyone. It's really been a good evening. Katie had to attend to her little girl tonight. It's a birthday, so I kind of stood in for her. So you guys take it easy, and looks like our next meeting is on Tuesday, December 14th. So I don't know, Dave, you going to be Santa Claus?
Yeah, I'll dress up. Yeah, I'll dress up. Pinar, are you going to send out the voting sheets again like you normally do?
Yes, I mean, in a shorter time, I will be sending it to you, and then I will again ask you sometime before the meeting so that Kelly can work on those numbers.
Okay.
So you will be hearing from me soon.
Okay. And that will be those numbers that the actual numbers we'll have to disperse.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have our marching orders. Have a good evening. Enjoy a partially good day tomorrow.
Happy Veterans Day, John.
Huh?
Happy Veterans Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, John.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Jeff.
much. Thank you all. So we have a big celebration on Thursday down at the Missouri Athletic Club. We'll be recognizing some people down there, and of course, this is all a special time of year, you know, when you recognize the veterans in their service around the world. And my daughter's in France, and they they make it a point to go to Normandy or the American Cemetery every year just to pay their respects. So take care.
Okay.
Good night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Good night.
Right.